No, he provoked that. So, see, when you talk about this communal thing and all that, you have to essentially compare the fundamentals. There's an extraordinary book called Riots and Wrongs, which has documented almost all the Hindu-Muslim riots that have occurred in India over the last nearly 300 years. It is a very revealing book. Maybe we can have a discussion on that some other day. But this is a point. The Hindu side has always responded. The other side has always provoked.
We've had people on the show who have exactly the polar opposite opinion.
I'll be happy to debate you.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point, because there's no chance that I'll be able to debate with you on this, because I'm a podcast, I'm the host of the show. But maybe a fair argument about the whole Hindu-Muslim thing is when there is someone on the other side talking to you, and your scholarly material will be against his scholarly material.
Certainly.
But from my standpoint, after doing like more than 500 podcasts, I don't completely agree with you, because I've heard opinions from all sides.
Then I'll give you a reading list. Maybe we can expand on this discussion in the next episode.
Okay, cool, fair. Which is also why, while I'm a student of history, and I totally believe that the invasions that happened before colonialism began have ruined a lot of things for our country, and I would also go as far as saying have killed off a lot of the love that Hindus have for Hinduism.
Yes.
Fair to say?
Not love. I would say, especially Hindus throughout the northern India, parts of what is today known as Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are all part of India.
Yeah, I mean,
So no trace of Hindu Dharma survives there.
yeah, fair.
You will not find a single temple of classical origin in that entire region.
So, as a student of history, seeing it very objectively, of course it hurts me as a Hindu.
Yes.
You know that my own culture, my own ancestors have gone through this.
Yes.
My own ancestors were raped and pillaged, etc. But I have to have social responsibility as a modern media professional with this kind of a following. So, I always fear talking a little bit about the invasion
This
side of
topic,
things.
yeah.
Because, so I mean, I think, you know what we're talking about, how you dedicate 30 years to it. You dedicate 30 years to one subject, which is why you talk about it with as much passion. And I want to bring it out.
Okay.
But I do a lot of other subjects as well.
Yes, I watched some of your
Yeah.
episodes.
So I see it from a political viewpoint, I see it from a geopolitical viewpoint where we have international viewers who will get this impression of India. And honestly, the more you talk about Islamic invasions, whether we like it or not, it is going to fuel Hindu-Muslim tension in this country.
No, I would, again, this falls in the realm of received opinion. Because unless you don't understand history, if you don't know where you came from, you won't know where you're going.
Okay?
It's as simple as that.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of all the conversations I've had with people my age. Okay. And once again, I'll ask you the same question. But before we move into actually breaking down the Islamic invasion, talk to the young Muslim watching this podcast.
It's simple. Ask this young Muslim to honestly read and understand the fundamentals of his own faith, unaided by, preachers or anybody. Just as he would study a textbook, a physics textbook or something. You use your logical faculty. Read the fundamentals of his faith. Okay. Compare it with where it stands on the plane of rationality and logic and reasoning. Then the truth will become evident to that Muslim.
6 out of 10 जिनको सबको from indigestion, but अब digestion की चिंता हम पे छोड़ दो और gains पे focus करो. Muscle with viral rate, brilliant with 50% higher protein absorption, तो digestion भी अच्छा होगा और gains भी.
Okay. I don't agree with you here, but I will let you continue.
As simple as that.
Okay. And I don't agree with you because I've not read the Quran myself.
You should.
Okay. Fair. Fair. And I don't know enough about Islam because I've not grown up in an Islamic family. I'm sure,
Neither have I grown up in Islam.
which is why I don't think you have the right to fully
This
comment on
is a very old debate which, this is a lie, which is one of those instruments used to prevent a logical scrutiny of Islam. These are the same line that the church and the Pope in medieval Europe used to prevent a rational, critical scrutiny of the Bible, of the fundamentals of Christianity. Both these faiths are cut from the same cloth.
Okay. Maybe.
So the moment anybody critically scrutinized Christianity there, what was the result? Stonings, public beheadings, what is known as witch burning, and imprisoning. You know how Galileo was hounded? Why? They didn't go out with swords to kill those anybody. No, they simply questioned the rational and logical basis for both the Old Testament and New Testament, the foundations of Christianity. Look what happened. Okay, the world has become better for that. Okay, all right. So who are the people who did that? People from the same Christian religion. Okay, they questioned it. So let the internal reform begin from there. So each time when the argument comes up that non-Muslims, non-Christians, because they are non-Muslims or non-Christians, they don't have a right to scrutinize, the books of the teachings of their religion. But it is the same teachings which impel their followers to either convert or kill the followers of other religions. Yeah.
And I have respect for the life that you have lived, dedicating yourself to study. But if you and me as Hindu men comment on someone else's faith, it's the equivalent of a Jewish person saying, "Are Ramji told Sita to commit sati."
No,
Your whole religion.
It's not the same.
I think it's the
It's
same.
a false equivalence.
Exactly.
No, it's a false
That's what they would
equivalence.
say about you.
No. Now, fine, I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
Their fundamentals tell us to abuse Ram and Sita in the vilest terms. Their fundamentals teach them, saying that an idol has to be broken because it is against, whatever their god or whatever other things they have. So are you telling me that here is a question of my survival? Their books tell them to do this to me, and you are telling me that I shouldn't read, my suffering is a result of those books. And you are telling me not to read them because as a non-Muslim or a non-Christian, you are not supposed to read it because you can't understand it, you're not qualified. It doesn't work like that, sir.
I mean, see, I'll tell you what I feel. I don't think that anyone should completely rely on a book as the complete compass for their life.
Without book, both these religions don't exist. Kitab plays a central role in their faith.
100%.
Yeah.
But not all Muslims and Christians fully listen to the book because they understand the truth about modern society.
This is, to an extent, I'll grant this to a good extent to, Christianity, but not Islam.
At least the Muslims that I know, and we've had some Muslim scholars on the show as well.
Sure.
So at least I'm not. This is not whitewashing all Muslims and all Christians all over the world. And I'll also, I'm not saying that Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma is better than or worse than any religion, but in India, in our culture, we have the freedom to debate, which is why even this is happening.
So you are actually making my case for me.
No. I 100% agree with you here that this is one beautiful thing about our ancient culture, that we are not given one book and told that this is how life is, which is what allows us to expand a little bit. But in saying that here, the underlying argument is address a modern day Indian Muslim who loves India as much as you and me. Not all Islamic people all over the world, all over history. So I personally feel that, again, whenever we have these Hindu versus Muslim conversations, we are not being socially responsible based on the modern geopolitical truths that
I
surround
don't
India.
understand, these are very, very general terms, say socially responsible, things like that. When the question is about your survival, all right? So why is it the responsibility of only one community to be, in quotes, what you call socially responsible? Why doesn't the water flow from the other
I'll
side.
tell you why. Have you seen Border? And in the end of Border, the
Let's
film.
not go into movies. Cinema is the worst yardstick for any
Fine.
debate.
I'll tell you why, sir. If we're truly talking about why it's a responsibility of Hindus and Hinduism, because this is what we learned from Yudhishthir, Arjun,
No, we didn't learn this.
Sahadev and Nakul.
No, we didn't learn this.
I personally feel we did.
We learned strength. We didn't learn apologetics.
We also didn't learn to oppress people from other faiths. We learned to accept. And we learned from the Mahabharata that you need to
6 out of 10 हम पे छोड़ दो और गेम्स पे फोकस हम हायर प्रोटीन एब्जॉर्प्शन तो डाइजेशन भी अच्छा होगा और
Which can't come to
the argument against you. I'm trying to convey this conversation.
Okay.
So there is no me versus you here, sir.
No, definitely
At all.
not.
Okay,
Yeah.
disagreements build better podcasts. And podcasting has reached a point now where, sir, if I just allow you to expand on the history that you have read, I'll be doing injustice to my audience, which has heard a lot of this on the show already. So I need to get fresher content. I need to challenge myself and you to reach that fresher content.
Sure.
And the audience has helped the podcast evolve. We have both pro-Modi, anti-Modi, Hindus, non-Hindus watching the show. So we have to address everyone. We can't just address the Hindus as I did 2 years ago. Because I was also learning all the stuff you're talking about for the first time. But I have a lot more perspective now, which is what's making me ask you these questions.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go. So again, if you want to debate, I can go on for another hour.
We can do that.
We won't expand on the historical conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
So would you like to expand on historical conversation?
No
or do you
issue. You can steer it in which way you want.
just address the young Indian Muslim?
No, I told you. That's my only prescription.
Okay.
Let him or her read the fundamentals with an open mind of his own
Okay.
religion, with an open mind. See where it leads to him.
Okay.
Honesty is the best policy, as simple as that. I am I'm not inimical to anybody. What are truths are truths.
Okay.
Whether I like it or not is separate. That's where my, bias and other things come in.
Fair. And I'm sure that there are non-Hindus who say the same about you also.
Yeah, but, let them.
But
So
that's
the
fine.
point. You keep an open mind.
Okay.
Don't begin with with things.
Okay.
All right. So that is the point. What is it that leads to violence? This kind of thing. Why does victims of that violence should always be accommodating? Should always to use your Yudhishthir. No Hindu, you will not see a Hindu unless he's a hardened criminal or something, which is a different thing. All right. The fundamentals of his religion won't teach him to behave like this. That is a point.
You're saying the fundamentals of Islam teach them to be
Yes.
violent.
That's why message
That's
to that.
very generalized, sir.
It is true, sir.
If that was the case, Abdul Kalam, Zakir Khan,
So
Mohammad Siraj, all these guys would be violent.
correct. So they know they are exceptions.
Now then it's not a general.
They are exceptions. I'm speaking on the strength of what the history of Islam throughout the world.
Okay.
This has been a behavior pattern.
I think honestly there's many people who would agree with you in the world. Okay.
Then I have to see what their scholarship is.
Okay. I personally disagree.
Give you my reading list. Please.
Okay.
We'll both agree.
Let's move on to the Islamic invasions. I am detaching myself from the Islamic invasion narrative based on the modern young Indian Muslims.
Okay.
I segregate the two aspects.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. I personally feel that if we attach whatever happened during the Islamic invasions to the modern day Muslim, it's the equivalent of saying all the white people in USA were slave owners and have affected the black community a lot, which is actually what's happening in the USA today. And the USA is fully kind of divided as a community. That country is suffering. I don't want the same to happen to my country. Because for me, I love being Hindu, but I'm Indian before I'm Hindu.
Okay.
So, which is why now I will let you continue about the
You
Islam.
are an Indian before in
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm the most Hindu that I know my age.
Okay.
let's go on. Islamic invasions. Let's talk about the story.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't we begin with what happened pre-Islamic invasions in India? Like in terms of what was the landscape, the culture of all Indians at that point in the subcontinent. And by subcontinent, I also mean Pakistan, I also mean Afghanistan. Why don't you draw out a cultural, historical, geographical map as well as an economic map, as well as a kind of blueprint about what went wrong that these invasions became successful? Because technically, the winners of war write history. So we were the losers of war in that period. If we lost war, there was something that went wrong on our side. It's like losing a cricket game and then you go back to say that, oh, between overs 20 and 30 we didn't do this.
Okay.
So highlight that also, because it's important to study history from a psychological perspective so that history doesn't repeat itself.
Sure, it's a lot of ground you've asked me to cover.
Feel free wherever.
So, broadly speaking, India had external invasions before Islam. Shakas came in, Pahlavis came in, so multiple guys came, but they did not.
6 out of 10 जिम लोग सबको from indigestion, but अब digestion की चिंता हम पे छोड़ दो और gains पे focus करो. Muscle with bilateral ring pretended 50% had protein absorption, तो digestion भी अच्छा होगा और gains भी.
Two significant damage. One. Two, they were all pre-Islamic invasions, which means the faith called Islam had not yet been born in this world. Alright?
Same geography.
And the Greek invasions began even before Christianity had begun, had taken root even in the West. So they did do significant damage to us due to various factors. We had extraordinarily strong kingdoms, and the modes of travel, climate, weather, all those Hindu Kush mountains, and then the Karakoram Pass. It was very hostile territory. The Himalayas, even today, it is still our natural fortress. Right? So, all the socio-religious cultural landscape, it was a rather homogeneous society in one sense. You had different schools of which were the offshoots of Hindu Dharma itself. Mainly the Vaidika school, and second the Buddhist school. And much later you had other schools like Shakta, Shaiva, Vaishnava. Much later they came. So this was roughly the socio-religious landscape. Now on the economic landscape, India was the world's largest economy. Okay, second only to China. Sometimes the equations would change roughly here and there. Now, on the political side, we were characterized by sweeping empires under one king. It began with Chandragupta Maurya, then followed by Satavahanas, Guptas, all these are sweeping large empires as big as some 10 European countries. That was the size of one empire, ruled by one monarch. So this was roughly the political thing. And there was cultural unity in the sense that although the Hindu mind, there was no non-Hindu influence in that sense by that time. So the Hindu mind had always had a sense of India's geographical borders, and they were united culturally, which is still the case today. Why would someone, why should I go to Ujjain? Or why should I go to Rameshwaram? Or why should somebody staying in Jalandhar come all the way till Kanchipur? Right? Why should the sari for Kamakhya Devi temple in Assam, till date it is stitched in Kanchipur? So which law, which rule book tells you to do this? Which created this system? The Purohit in Pashupatinath temple in Nepal, he comes from South Canara in Karnataka. Compulsory. try to in Kannada. So which system created this? What created this? So it is what is known as sadhana, tapasya. It is a long process of trial and error and a profound kind of evolution. So this was the cultural landscape back then. Okay? Political हो गया, cultural हो गया, economic हो गया. Then what was the other thing? Something else.
Psychological.
Psychological is, I won't use that word psychological, but this was how it was roughly spread. Okay. What we also did was that, I don't like to use this term, but since it is fashionable now, I'll use it. India was the greatest exporter of culture.
6 out of 10 जिम लोग सफर फ्रॉम इंडाइजेशन बट अब डाइजेशन की जगह हम पे छोड़ दो और गेम्स पे फोकस करो मसल विद वर्क 50% हार्ड प्रोटीन एब्जॉर्प्शन तो डाइजेशन भी अच्छा होगा और गेम्स भी
When our businessmen went out in caravans, they took Hindu culture with them. And wherever they went, they told stories from India, from Jatkat stories, from Hitopadesha, from Panchatantra, from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata. Wherever they went, even in the Middle East, you trace the history of folklore in Persia, Turkey, Middle East, you will find the Hindu element there. So this has happened more than minimum 2,000 years ago. It was a continuous exchange until Islam cut it off. This used to be there, and what is today known as Southeast Asia. There the influence, it is an extension counter of Hindu culture, actually speaking. What made this possible? Unless you have this kind of political power, which is also an enlightened political power, you don't need swords to go out and kill and conquer and then impose your culture. Two ways to do this. Right? One is chop off and then convert or forcibly impose your culture on an unwilling population. Or you do this. You have your secure borders, you secure your political kingdom power, you know how to defend your borders from both internal and external threats. And then culture automatically spreads itself. Even China, till date, it hates India for a reason. That without firing a single shot, without throwing a single sword, India culturally conquered China. A lot of Chinese medicine owes to a 2nd century AD Ayurvedic text named Navanitakam. So then when Islam began to make inroads throughout the world, we were also kind of complicit in a sense.
Like didn't take action.
We didn't take them too seriously. In that sense. Plus, we didn't actually, Hindu kings back then, fail to study the real nature of this new invader.
So you're saying the invaders before
Yeah,
we had
before.
already defeated, so we assume that this is one more external
One
invader.
more external invader. Who's also like them.
Okay.
And a lot of those pre-Islamic invaders were assimilated into Hindu society.
Like the Hun.
Hunas, Shakas, Greeks and all that. So we also thought this was something similar to that, and realistically they didn't have it very easy. Islamic invaders from to reach Delhi, from Ghazni to Delhi or from Sindh to Delhi. Sindh is the starting point. So when Qasim comes in, from Qasim's raid into Sindh in 712 and he leaves in 715. From then to establishing a firm foothold in Delhi, it took about 320 years. Why? Because Hindus never gave up fighting. They didn't have it easy, unlike in other parts of the world. So within 40 years after Muhammad died, all of Egypt was swallowed by Islam, and they touched the borders of Spain. Then they were ravaging Europe. Entire Middle East was conquered by Islam within 40 years of Prophet Muhammad's death. From Muhammad bin Qasim's maiden raid into Sindh till the time that Muslims established a political foothold in Delhi. It took about 320 years, and throughout that, they met with fierce resistance at every step. Now think about this. After Qasim, Muhammad bin Qasim was an Arab Muslim.
You'll also have to thoda give context on him. Was he? Where did he come from?
Okay.
And roughly what year? Like,
Okay, so Qasim came into India. He raided India in 712 CE, and he was in India for about 3 years, less than 3 years. Then he goes back to Iraq, Baghdad.
modern day Iraq.
Baghdad. So Baghdad at that time was one of the greatest centers, or one of the greatest hubs of the rapidly rising Muslim political power in that belt, that region of the world. So it was also known as the global hub of Islamic culture at that time.
6 out of 10 Jim Crow suffer from indigestion. But अब digestion की चिंता हम पे छोड़ दो और gains पे focus करो. Muscle with bile rate. Brilliant with 50% higher protein absorption. तो digestion भी अच्छा होगा और gains भी.
And it retained its preeminence for about 2 or 3 centuries, after which Genghis Khan comes, and then he completely devastates Baghdad. And later, Genghis Khan still has, he arouses a lot of hatred even today in the Muslim world. At the time when, they thought that Islam would take over the whole world, this fellow comes, short man, with a huge army of Mongols, and devastates and pretty much decimates whatever territories that Islam had conquered. And the Mongols go all the way up to Egypt also. That's another story. And his grandson, another Mongol named Hulagu Khan, he repeats the same thing 2 generations or 3 generations later.
Sacks Baghdad.
Sacks Baghdad again. In fact, the decimation is so brutal that there are graphic descriptions which I can't, repeat in this show.
You can actually.
I can, okay, fine. The whole city is razed, forts are burned down, men, women, children, infants, they are all, basically what the Mongols do is that they gave the taste of what Islam had done to them in a much more ferocious manner.
One second, when did Islam, like when Genghis Khan and
Genghis Khan came around early 12th century.
okay, yeah, and then there was few battles that the Muslim world won against the Mongols.
No, before that, in Central Asia, Islam had touched all the way till Central Asia.
Okay.
So Afghanistan and Upper, the Chinese region, which is where you still find, this Muslim Uyghur province in China. Muslims are in substantial numbers. It dates back all this period. Anyway, so that's why I say we have to read history to understand the present and future. Anyway, so that happens, and Qasim, he's called back to Baghdad, and pretty much the regime changes there in Baghdad. Incidentally, Muhammad bin Qasim is deputed to invade India by his uncle and father-in-law. Okay, जो चाचा बोलते हैं ना, he's also his father-in-law. And he says, you have to invade Hind. I'm giving you a fleet of 6,000 boats, warships, and go. That's how it begins. And he goes back there, but by then the regime has changed in Baghdad, and his uncle has been deposed and killed. And the hostile party, the person who was deposed, Al-Hajjaj, that's Qasim's uncle's name. That fellow is in power. So Qasim is recalled there. He's imprisoned. He's skinned alive and killed in a gruesome manner. This kind of warfare, this kind of politics is unknown to India until that time. This kind of all-out warfare where there are no rules but only victory at any cost. So he goes back there. Between him and Mahmud of Ghazni, there is a gap of about 2.5 centuries. So 715 is when Qasim goes back to Baghdad, and 1000 CE is when Mahmud comes into India. He begins his first reign. So you see about 2.5 centuries of gap.
You know, parallelly, if we speak about what's happening in India at this time, or even if we kind of precede this period, roughly when was Ashoka and Chandragupta?
This is way back here. Ashoka, they lived BCE, what is known as BC, before Christ.
Okay.
Now it's called BCE, meaning before Common Era.
So I'm painting that whole phase from Chandragupta and Ashoka up till the point that we've reached in our time.
Qasim is about 1500 years.
Wow, okay. But in this whole 1500-year period, from this whole Ashoka period, we hear about Kalinga War and how that war was so brutal that it changed Ashoka's mindset and all. We've had someone come on the show and say that no, actually that's a whole other conversation about just Ashoka. But in this whole 1500-year period, there were no civil wars in India, or there weren't warring factions or anything.
Okay, so when you say civil wars, it's a very good question. Randy.
6 out of 10 जिनको suffer from indigestion, but अब digestion की चिंता हम पे छोड़ दो और gains पे focus करो. Muscle with viral rate, pretend कि 50% higher protein absorption, तो digestion भी अच्छा होगा और gains भी.
When you say civil war and fractional war or factional war, a civil war, what is a civil war? It is the breakdown of government. Right? Basically, a civil war is anarchy. Depending on the intensity, depending on the duration, it is basically anarchy. The degrees might vary. So this is why the existence of a government is so vital in any civilization, right? When government breaks down, or when the government is so weak that the citizens, they take the law into their own hands and say, look, we don't need you. That is when a civil war also happens, all right? Now, in the technical sense of the word, as we understand civil war as anarchy, it never existed in Indian history.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Let's rewrite it as state versus state wars.
Okay, so what you're talking about is, this question comes from what is known as the modern democratic mind. State versus state. You are talking about a period of entirely composed of monarchies, of rulers, kings. Technically, in a democracy, there is no king. There is an elected representative, right? He's the first among equals. He becomes a PM and things like that. Now, for this mind to understand how a monarchy operates is very, very hard, if not impossible.
See, actually, where I'm getting with this, we're talking about that Islamic invasion point. My original question was, what went wrong in India for those invasions to become successful over time? Because the narratives I've got on the show are that it became a little you versus me even then. And this is with Abhijit Chavda, with a bunch of the other historians that we spoke about. There was some lack of unity, say, between the Rajputs and whoever was ruling in Madhya Pradesh or Maharashtra or the rest of the country. There was some lack of unity, possibly because of this whole narrative about hard men build soft times build soft men, and soft men build hard times. So we're at that hard times point when we're talking about India getting invaded, which is preceded by soft men. Which,
No, I don't know where you're getting this from, but
like every historian on the show has said this.
no, it didn't work quite like that. There are many reasons for this. I think I mentioned about the complacency of Hindu kings.
Yeah, so soft men. This is what I'm talking about.
Not even soft men. So the man who was responsible for allowing Qasim to succeed was a Hindu king named Raja Dahir. He was ruling in the Makran coast, which is, Makran is now in Pakistan.
Karachi.
His capital was a city named Debal. So this is where he entered. All the invasions prior to Qasim had taken place through the land route, through the mountain passes in Afghanistan, all that. And they were easily beaten back. The terrain is so difficult, it is so tough, and you don't know, the invaders didn't know the lay of the land, so to speak, then the weather and preparedness, lot of things. So they were beaten back. 4 or 6 invasions, attempts like that were beaten back. So Hajjaj said, okay, let's try the sea route this time. And all the 4 invasions before that, Tahir had repulsed them. So this time, this fellow comes with an even better preparedness with a larger force, and Tahir by then has become complicit. That is one factor. The second factor were the Buddhists, a section of Buddhists, not all of them, a section of Buddhists who were carrying out, who were passing on intelligence about Tahir to Al-Hajjaj and his officers and his spies. That we don't want to live under this. There is one theory that Tahir was an oppressive person, but that theory finds not much support in through evidence. But whatever, this is the Buddhist correspondence. There, what is known as backstabbing, supplying valuable intelligence. It is a big factor actually. It is a big factor.
As in, the Buddhists
Yeah.
facilitated the entry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, by passing on information. I mean, they didn't open the gates or whatever, but what does an invader look like, look for? He wants to know geography. He wants to know the troop strength of his victim. He wants to know the local conditions. He wants to know where they can camp. All these real world things. And then, obviously, on the military side, he wants to know the vulnerabilities. Alright, where are the vulnerable points? What is public opinion about this king? These are all, you act on this intelligence. Even today, that is what happens in diplomacy and things like that. So combined factors plus Tahir's own complacency, he was so foolish that he allowed Muhammad bin Qasim to pitch his tent 60 kilometers away or 60 miles away, or quite close to his fortress. Who does this? It's a overconfidence कि पहले इसको हराया था अब भी हरा सकते हैं.
This is what I'm asking.
Yes.
Like, in terms of what are those soft